Welcome everybody to the LinkedIn Ads Lab. I am delighted to have Borys Khodan. Finally, we've made it. We've got Borys on the show. So a quick little introduction into who Borys is and how we know each other. So I looked it up. It's roughly around a year ago, nearly to the day that we first got in touch to speak a little bit about LinkedIn ads. And then we shared a walk around a lovely park in Dublin, speaking about LinkedIn ads and analytics. But I love talking to Borys because of the way he thinks. We also have kind of a similar background in that Borys was from Google, a Google insider, so knows Google inside out. And I was a LinkedIn insider, so we shared a little bit of commonality there. But one thing that really set Borys aside was the way he thinks about attribution. I'm sure since we've last spoke, it's developed even more. So I'm really excited for this conversation today. So Borys, welcome.
Thank you, Rob. It's nice to be here. It's been a while.
It has been a while, but it's good to be chatting to you again. Okay, so before we kind of go into a little bit about you, I want to ask you a question in terms of if you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
I always struggle a little bit with this question because I honestly have no idea what I would be doing. But there are like a few things that I'm pretty sure about. Like is the fact that I'm pretty easygoing at any time. Like I can find meaning and satisfaction in pretty much any type of job out there. In the past, I had jobs that like other people absolutely hated it, and I loved it. I think it's like a lot on a person to make their job interesting or whatever they do interesting, to find new challenges, to push themselves, to ask questions. And essentially, if you do this, you get really, really good at whatever you do. And once you get really good at it, you become really passionate about it. And then with passion, it comes satisfaction and everything else. So I don't really know like what I would be doing if not for paid media. I'm pretty happy with paid media. I'm not looking for career switch as of now. But if I would have to choose, I'd probably pick something around healthy lifestyle, trying to make people live a healthy life or healthier life, or something in the education space, because I really think the education is a great equalizer, and we all have different backgrounds. We were born in different places, different time, but if you get a good education, you essentially have better chance of succeeding or sort of realizing yourself in life. So it doesn't have to be a formal education per se as a university, but courses like educating people, helping them gain new skills. So these are kind of the healthy lifestyle and education would be like the two areas that I would try to make a career switch towards if I would have to. But for now, I'm pretty content and pretty happy with paid media. Keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, that's for sure. It sounds like, to be honest though, you could probably make a career out of anything. I think with that attitude of doing everything you do with conviction, even if it's not necessarily a job you like, and you'll end up liking it. I think that's an interesting perspective, especially when, a lot of the time when people are unhappy or unfulfilled by what they do, and it's maybe it's just a different perspective a lot of people need. So that's a nice note to start on, and I agree with you on the education piece as well. And I like the way education is maybe being democratized a little bit and changing in terms of away from this traditional name of school and name of degree needed.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about your background. So how did you end up in paid media? So I know it's through Google, through the mothership, but tell us a little bit about pre-Google and what drew you to it.
Yeah, so essentially my digital marketing career started about 10 years ago, I want to say. So it was actually an internship at Google in the customer support team. And I had I knew a little bit about digital marketing, pay-per-click, these type of things, but I never really worked with digital marketing at all. And then I get this internship at Google, like, hey, join customer support and help Google Ads customers. I was like, okay, that sounds, I don't know what to expect. Let's try it. So I started the internship, loved it from like week 2. I started like really deep diving into product, into Google Ads. Try to learn like every single possible button there is to learn, every single feature, what it does, why customers use it, why people use Google Ads in the first place as well. It was really, really great learning experience for me. So I went back to uni for another year, started freelancing, launching campaign for customers. And then in the meantime, I got an offer for a full-time position to return. So it was really a no-brainer. I didn't really look for any other jobs. So I decided to come back. And then I started my Google saga. So 1.5 years in the customer support team, again, supporting Google Ads. It was like a premium support team for the biggest customers out there and for agencies. And then I switched over to account management, moved to Dublin. And then it was like creme de la creme, so to speak. So the top like 1%, even like less than 1% of the biggest customers. And, the budgets were different, the expectations were different, the complexities were different, the measurement and so on. And there was like 22-year-old, 23-year-old joining a call with the CMO or going in the room actually, trying to explain why they should jump on an automation bandwagon. And it was an interesting experience. I spent a couple of years in that team, and then my latest role was working just with one customer. It was a global brand I won't name here, but like hundreds of millions of spend actually. Full funnel media from TV to paid search. It was a complex, like really, really complex global brand. Everybody knows it. I learned a lot again, and it was coming up to like 8, 9 years of Google. I was like, okay, maybe it's time to look around, see what's out there. And then I started looking for roles that would more or less align with the skills that I have and the experience that I have. And then I came across Synthesia. Was completely blown away by the product, by the interviewing process. And then in a couple of weeks, I got an offer, and was a no-brainer offer, and decided to join Synthesia. So now here I look after all paid media and SEO now as well.
It's a really interesting one, especially for anyone who's worked in the big tech, so Google, LinkedIn, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, obviously, because a lot of the time, and I'm sure you heard this as well, a lot of people talk internally about wanting to be client side, wanting to basically all of the knowledge you have from all of these clients, what am I going to do with it? And I think it'd be great to put it to one client. So one question I have about that is, how did you find the transition from being kind of consultancy to client side?
Yeah, it took, I must say it took a little bit of time to readjust. Because also like for me, it wasn't just like from the, from Google side to client side, but it was also from a huge company to a small company, right? So when you have like 100,000 employees or 200,000 employees and you join a company below 200 employees, it's a completely different experience. All of a sudden, like your area of ownership is not everything, but like a lot, right? You kind of build processes, you build the team, you manage the channels, you do like so many things. So I guess like for me, that was the biggest adjustment that I had to make. Essentially like, okay, your area of ownership expanded drastically. And all of a sudden I have to, really know LinkedIn in and out and Meta in and out and all of the other channels and emerging channels, and keeping an eye on the industry, keeping an eye on the product, understanding like how it impacts our team when we release a particular feature. And things like that. So like the ownership expanded 10x or probably even 100x. And then it also gives you much more exposure into the business itself. So like you start caring about revenue metrics even more. Because in Google, like was, okay, of course, you have like targets, you have your things that you need to achieve, but you're not thinking about it from the perspective of like, okay, how much revenue am I generating for Google versus here? Like that's, what I'm thinking about, like how much revenue am I generating for Synthesia? How is it like helping the company grow what I do in my team? And it's really easy to make this direct link because I have all the attribution and all the measurements, which I'm sure we'll be talking about.
Yeah.
But the transition, I wouldn't say it was like, okay, 1 week and I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. It took me a couple of months to fully kind of transition into this, client side plus smaller company mode. But I just spent so much time learning, over the weekends, nights, like you constantly learn, you get the hang of it. And like after months 3 to 4, I was like, okay, I got it. Now it's time to, to really perform on the next level. But I loved it. Like if I would have to go back and like make the same decision again, I would just make it without even hesitating.
You lose all the safety nets. It's like that's the one thing about the big companies. There's a lot of people around you, layers around you, and things where you're guiding people. But it sounds like it's all on you. You're building the team, you're going for the number. There's no one else to answer.
I think you grow faster this way,
Yeah.
right? If there is a bit of like uncertainty, like what is going to happen tomorrow or in 1 month or in 6 months, like it just puts like, okay, if it's too much pressure that it's unhealthy, that's not healthy, like don't do it. But if it's like enough pressure to keep you growing consistently, I think it's great because if you stay like for years and years in the same place, like in the same role, for example, I think you will start stagnating at some point. And then it's even harder, to get out of that role and that stagnation period because you get like less happy, less excited, and it's just like it's become more challenging.
Yeah, for sure. So something that's definitely not stagnating, that's moving very, very fast is Synthesia. So tell us a little bit about Synthesia. They just say for everyone listening, give a little bit, for anyone who's never heard of Synthesia, give us a little bit of detail about what the company is.
Yeah. So we kind of position we position ourselves as AI video communication platform at this point. More specifically, we make these like talking heads or digital avatars of synthetic avatars. So the technology is text to video. You are able to type in any script or text you want, and then the digital avatar will be able to say the script. Obviously, we apply quite strict rules in what these avatars can say, right? So there's like a very strict moderation process. But the tech is essentially text to video technology, where you have, think of it as a video editor, and you can create kind of like slides and sort of presentation like style that allows you to produce AI videos. So it kind of substitutes or helps people substitutes the standard video production process. So it's like making a video right now in a normal way. Let's say you want to make a studio quality like video is very expensive and takes a lot of time and a lot of hustle. And imagine like you are doing production, you're reading a script and you made a mistake, but that's it. The shot is done. Like you go back in post editing and cannot make anything out of it because you made a mistake. Versus here, you go back into a script, you edit it, you regenerate the video, and you're pretty much done.
Got it. Yeah, it's a new wave, I think, of that people are adjusting to. It's AI generated avatars, things like that. There's even in the last couple of months, I've seen the advances Synthesia have made, and it's been incredible. So I can't think of how far it's going to go. Do you feel that's something that you're kind of dealing with a little bit at the minute, or has it just been all guns blazing? Is there kind of a little bit of hesitation from people in terms of getting used to the product because it's so revolutionary, or is it just excitement?
Well, I'm sure there like there are people that are I'm speaking not in Synthesia, like in Synthesia, like people are really, really excited about the tech, especially like any like product channel is probably one of the most channels we have, like on Slack, where people are just like looking for new releases, see what's coming, and whenever we have like all hands, and R&D kind of gives us a sneak peek into what they're working on and what's cooking. I think like it's like the level of excitement is amazing. But of course, in a broader sense, or from customers' perspective or potential customers' perspective, of course, people it's a new thing, so everybody reacts to it in a different way. Some are like early adopters. Oh my God, we want to get this in front of our customers as soon as possible. Versus others are like very skeptical or worried in some sense, and they're setting up teams that, like very strict requirements, who they can work with, like what exactly, like which AI companies they can work with, and so on. So I think like with any type of technology, you would have the skeptics, you would have the early adopters, and I guess it's just normal. But yeah, for sure, we have different spectrums of people who react differently.
Yeah, it's exciting, and with anything that exciting, there will be the spectrum, as you say. It's going, people will react very, very differently.
Yeah.
I think everyone in the marketing world is excited. The marketing people generally adopt these things and start to get creative and think about where they can go.
Yeah.
So on the marketing side, so tell us a little bit about Synthesia's marketing strategy. So, you know, who first thing to talk about, I suppose, is who are your target customers? Who is this for?
Yeah, so we have a couple of ICPs, but the strongest for us up to this point and right now as well would be learning and development departments. So these are the people who are responsible for creating training content, right? Because that's a very natural fit for our product. Imagine you are working in L&D department, you get a request, hey, we need to make this training. And your choices are, you could outsource it and pay a lot of money. You could hire an agency and make a very high quality production to make this, you know, this training material or this training in general for whatever department you have to make it for. Or you can go with like PDF and text, or just like create a presentation and send it out. And like, okay, you have to read this presentation and maybe answer a couple of quiz questions as an example. And that's like where we come in and say like, actually, you know, you can just use our software to create training, to create courses, whatever you need. And that's the core audience that really benefits from our product. And now we are experimenting with other departments as well. So there are like quite a few interesting use cases. Let's say like internal communication. So instead of sending, you know, just an email update or like text update, you can quickly create a video. Or another use case is that we now make these like custom avatars where you can, let's say you can make your CEO a digital avatar. So a CEO would be sending you an onboarding email like, hey, Rob, welcome to the company. It's great to have you here. Or like, you know, these very like personalized things, or in general, like a company-wide communication is another use case that we are exploring right now. And then like on sales outreach as well, imagine like you make a personalized video and send it via email or send it as like a DM on LinkedIn. People are more likely to respond to video rather than just a dry text message. Or if you make it personal and it's you, and like, you know, you can make it in any language. It's another, you know, it's another play there. It's just not limited to English, for example. And then, yeah, we have also like customer success, which is another department. So at this point, we have this feature, which is called AI Assistant. So essentially, you are able to paste the URL link or upload a PDF or a doc format, or just share your idea, like what the video you would like to be about. And it basically creates you the whole script in a couple of seconds. So for customer success, you have this like knowledge bases and help center articles that sometimes could be quite lengthy. You can just send a link, paste a link, and it will generate the video based on the content in that article. So you can still leave the text, but you can embed the video. If people prefer to watch rather than to read, they have this option. And obviously, as the product will evolve, you would be able to skip through the video as like chapters. So you can see, okay, like this is the part I'm most interested in, and it will be highlighted, and you just skip to that part. So yeah, it's a bit of a long answer. I'm sorry, but the primary ICP is learning and development, because they are really focusing on this like training content, where you have like subject matter expert explaining a particular topic. But now we are opening up these other new use cases that haven't been there before.
Cool. And I love a long answer, because the long answer is going to come with a short question. So a big thing about marketing, and marketing strategy, is being able to simplify the positioning. So obviously you have, you know, many different ICPs and personas, but in terms of your positioning, what have you kind of simplified it down to? You know, how are you going to market?
Yeah, I mean, from like messaging perspective, and like what we use in ads a lot is a very simple kind of like very simple framework of how you explain Synthesia works. And it's like, type in your text, pick your presenter, click generate video.
Yeah.
Right. That's a very like oversimplified explanation, but essentially that's kind of what it is. Like you just use text, you pick whoever you want this text to speak back to you, your presenter, and then you generate a video. That's about it. And obviously now we're like iterating on that and so on, because with this like AI assistant feature that I mentioned, you don't necessarily have to even paste the text now. You can paste the URL. So it just changes a little bit the kind of how our messaging works. But that's the simplest way to explain this to people. And then obviously show the end product, like how the AI avatars look like, how they speak, how they sound, what kind of gestures can they make, what kind of emotions they can produce. So that works really well. That's kind of like a aha moment for us generally. So you explain, okay, here's how it works. And then like, bam, here's the output. And then that creates like, oh, okay, wow, that's interesting. Let me check it out.
Got it. Okay. So to think about that in a marketing strategy lens, in terms of, it's exciting for you, right? Because with a product like Synthesia, you can be demand focused, you can be activation focused. You know, it's probably there's opportunity everywhere. So what way do you structure, I suppose, your demand? Is it demand generation, lead generation? How do you kind of structure your marketing campaigns right now?
Yeah, so for us it's very interesting because we don't have a defined category as of yet, right? So when you have a very defined category, I don't know, like marketing attribution or marketing reporting, like that's been a category for n number of years, like 10 years, 15 years. Yeah. So people would search in Google, people would look actively for a solution to their problem because they have a particular problem in mind. Versus in our case, majority of people in the world right now do not know that this stack exists. So it's more around building that awareness and, talking to these people who are not solution aware, or maybe sometimes even not problem aware, because we like a lot of our customers, they, for their training materials, they have been using like PDFs and text for years. So they don't really think about like, oh, actually, should we be making a video, for example, because it's more engaging, because people prefer it more. It's something we've done for years. We're just inertia is a powerful thing, I'll tell you. So that's why like people, we have to build that awareness first. We have to explain what solution or what the problem we are solving. So that's why like for us, channels like Google, where you capture demand, do not necessarily work the best. Because I'll tell you, there's not many people that would type in AI that creates training videos or talking heads, avatars, or these type of things. It obviously picked up after COVID and after, like Synthesia emerged and like other players in the market as well. But for us, it's still a very new category that we have to play that demand generation game and speak to people who are not solution aware and sometimes not even problem aware.
Got it. Yeah, it's really interesting. There's not many companies out there that have that. You have to build a category. When I was at LinkedIn, I was similar to yourself. I was working with a company spending one of LinkedIn's top 1% advertisers, and the similar thing, they were building the category. So they were like, their problem was, we know people need this, but people really don't know they need this. So we're trying to figure out a way of doing it. And obviously LinkedIn is a good place to do that. But before we dive into kind of LinkedIn specifically, how does the paid media mix look for such a strategy?
So you are really skewed towards paid social, right? Because the product is visual, and it's also very skewed towards video format as well, because you want to really show it. Like explaining it in words is much more difficult than you see visually what the end product of Synthesia looks like. So for us, it's like heavily skewed towards paid socials and also to the video format, because that's kind of the channels and the format that we found to be working the best for us.
Got it.
So think of like Meta, think of LinkedIn. We try TikTok, we try a bit of YouTube. So these like very visual paid social platforms.
Got it. Okay. So before we dive into LinkedIn, just to talk a little bit more about ad formats and things like that, there's a little bit of a pace changer here. So basically, if you were advertising, we're not going to talk about budgets, but if you had, say, 5K budget, which is generally people's minimum on LinkedIn, and that was it. You can't go above 5K. Someone was in before you and they spent a lot of money, got no results. You get 5K. How are you approaching it on LinkedIn?
So like first thing first, like it depends depends what your objective is, right? Because like you could have different objectives. Let's say you're running a big LinkedIn event. Your goal is to drive viewership, attendance. That would be kind of different, probably a little bit different approach than demand capture, let's say, or lead capture. So let's say like for this hypothetical example, I would focus on like lead capture, right? Because that's what most advertisers are interested in. We want results now, we want leads now, we want pipeline now, not tomorrow, not yesterday.
X amount of leads or I lose my job.
Exactly. Yeah. So the way I would approach it, like first of all, really niche down on the audience that I'm trying to reach. So, okay, you know your ICP, but you can split your ICP even further. Who is like really, really out of your ICP you want to speak to, and that would resonate with the solution that you're offering the most? It doesn't have to be a lot of people. Like with 5K budget, like it could be 20,000 people, it could be 15, it could be 40, like somewhere in this range. So really, really niche down on your ICP and make sure that they will resonate with the solution or with the problem that you were showing in your ads. And then I would spend quite a bit of time actually on messaging, on creatives, because I really think creative is king at the end of the day. And the difference between like bad creative and great creative is actually a difference in the results that you get. And it's a substantial difference. So I would spend a bit of time like figuring out the messaging, like what type of format's going to use, how to like really like stand out in a feed or whatever else I'm going to be advertising. And will my ad or creative evoke some kind of emotion, like stirs something in the soul and in the mind maybe as well. So that would be like first like figure out who you're talking to, what do you want to say, and then the last bit would be a little bit more like on the campaign launch itself. I would definitely go for manual bidding. Start like the lowest bid possible that you can get away with. You launch the campaign. If it doesn't spend, raise it a little bit incrementally to get to the point where you get kind of the cheapest cost from your budget. Because if you go for max delivery, like your 5K would be gone fairly quickly, and the CPC would be very high. So your chances of actually landing a lead and someone entering the pipeline would be just a bit lower, in my opinion. That's kind of roughly how I would approach it. There is obviously a lot of nuance to that and lots of detail, but on a high level, that's my approach with 5K.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the max delivery, will spend your budget learning, and then you might not have any statistical significance at the end of it. Unfortunately, there is use cases for max delivery. Of course, but one thing you spoke about there that really resonates with me, especially right now, is creative. Right, there was a time when you didn't need good creative to get good results on LinkedIn. That existed. And I think it actually, some of those advertisers still exist and are now wondering why LinkedIn does not work. You need good creative on LinkedIn these days. There's too much competition. They've opened up the frequency caps. There's way more people advertising than there was. And people are they don't respond to bad creative anymore, So that's the one side of it, in that like it's the attention part from people. You need good creative to get attention, but also on the other part of it is, if you have really good creative and you get really high CTRs, LinkedIn does reward you for that.
Yep.
So you get so much more efficiency when you have creative that people love. LinkedIn is like, yeah, give these people low bids. Let's run with it. The quality score is a real thing. So like my strategy has changed a little bit from being like creative being a 25% split along with, targeting and bidding and everything else, to being like creative is about 75% of it. And then if you get good creative, you actually have to worry much less about the tool.
Yeah, because people already kind of hacked the other part, right?
Yeah.
So like, okay, like what kind of bidding strategy am I going with? Like what kind of ad formats broadly work? Like what kind of targeting should I choose? And these type of things, they're fairly straightforward to figure out. Like if you use lots of common sense and some bit of experimentation. But creative is a bit of a, it's a wild west. Like your imagination is essentially the limit, like how to creating good creative. And that's why it becomes like so, and to your point as well, the creative fatigue and also overload. Like everywhere we go right now, it's all ads. Like look at the Google results, like results now and like 5 years ago, more ads. If you look at the amount of ads shown on Meta per user, more. If you look at LinkedIn, it's more. If you look at YouTube, now they show like 2 skippables or like 2 non-skippable. Like it's more, like ads are everywhere, and it's like fight for attention. And the only way you can win that fight is if you somehow stand out, and hopefully in a good way.
Yeah. In a good way is the big thing. I think people are borderline standing out for the sake of it sometimes. But look, it is still standing out in a sense, but a good exercise for anyone listening, and I occasionally do it, is I'm so blind to ads now, obviously, because I work in advertising and I see them everywhere. Just become conscious when you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever, and count how many ads you see in a short space of time. It's the best exercise ever for any advertiser, because you straight away start to become conscious about what you're actually taking in and what you're not, and what works. Obviously, it's a sample size of 1, so it's not going to be like anything conclusive, but it'll at least give you an idea of what your ads should be like to gain attention. I feel like using yourself as a sample is the best thing you can do on that.
Yep, for sure.
Cool. So LinkedIn, let's dive in a little bit. So what I really want to talk about today is attribution. You're the attribution king at the minute. We're in a world where attribution is huge, and if you really aren't getting the results from LinkedIn, maybe it's not working. Yep. So what I'd like to know is how you think about attribution, considering the model you just talked about.
Probably one of my favorite topics when it comes to advertising in general, not just LinkedIn specifically, but other channels as well. Like how do you assign credit to an ad, to a channel, to a campaign? We can probably spend a better part of this podcast talking about just about attribution. But the way I approach it for LinkedIn is essentially have the best possible in-platform measurement and CRM measurement, and also have every possible attribution model I can have. And then I make decisions sometimes based on data, sometimes based on gut feel, sometimes based on checking a couple of different attribution models in a couple of different places. So let me just explain it in a little bit more detail. So for measurement, obviously like insights tag and the conversion tracking is a kind of no-brainer. Everybody has to have it. And I recommend like setting up as many conversions as you can. Even like, website visit, pricing page visit, spend time on website, these type of things, because it will become valuable down the road. If you're very serious about analyzing your creative, if you're very serious about analyzing your performance, you need like the more conversions you have, the better. I'm not sure if like LinkedIn has the limit of amount of conversions you can create, but we are kind of like in 50, I would say at this point. I think
if there was a limit, you're on the border, basically.
I hope it's like 200, because we're still pushing for more. We're still be creating more. So that's the first part, right? Like conversion tracking, the simple like insights tag and these type of things. Then the second one is obviously conversion API. I was really happy by the fact when LinkedIn actually released conversion API into the world. I thought it was a huge win, because for B2B, without the conversion API, you cannot really easily measure what type of campaign or what type of ad brought you a very valuable lead. So as soon as the conversion API was out, we like implemented it straight away, and we have a lot of conversions that are set up this way, and I find them to be quite accurate as well. So that's on the conversion tracking piece. Like obviously with UTMs, the simple stuff, you have to tag your ads and everything else like in the best way possible. I was really happy when dynamic UTMs came out as well, because it simplifies the life a lot. Now we can, even like in GA and everywhere else, we can drill down on the ad level, on the campaign level, and it's very, very easy to do. Plus, now with the dynamic UTMs, you can also analyze, you can basically run the same creative asset across multiple campaigns without like really duplicating it. And you can analyze it then on your end, like in GA or like in HubSpot and this type of thing. So that was
you get all the engagements without basically losing the tracking. Yeah,
exactly. Because that was like a big pain for us. Like we couldn't really know like which country the creative is coming from, right? So now with dynamic UTMs, it solved that problem. So that's on like tagging and on the measurement side, and then on the attribution side specifically. So with the conversion API, obviously you will get some insights and some data if you created if you got a lead that entered the pipeline stage, we will know it. Like we'll send this data back to LinkedIn. LinkedIn will match this data, and then we will see this conversion attribute in the UI. But then we also rely on self-reported attribution. I think it's quite important. There are ways to like stress test or like double check your self-reported attribution. One way is to just stop advertising on LinkedIn in one country and check your pre and post, like how people responded in that particular country that they saw, like they found out about you on LinkedIn as an example, and you will get the accuracy of a self-reported attribution. And it's actually fairly accurate. It's not 100% accuracy, obviously, but it's fairly accurate, I would say.
Is it simple? How did you hear about us?
Yeah. Simple question. How did you hear about us? Yeah. And then we also have a revenue attribution report set up. I wouldn't say that I'm like biggest fan and I trust it with my life, because obviously it's a LinkedIn product, so they would over credit it. Plus, correlation that like doesn't mean causation. So if a lead saw an ad, our ad on LinkedIn, it doesn't mean that this specific ad or this specific campaign actually converted the lead. So there are these questions there.
Just to explain to everyone there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the revenue attribution report will essentially take everything, click, impression, whatever, and attribute a kind of an ROI score to LinkedIn ads. So essentially, sometimes you could see like 10x ROI or whatever because it's taking in everything. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they were changing the attribution a little bit over the last couple of months, but as of now, it has impression level attribution. So you would have like one impression. If there was one impression and lead converted, you obviously get the credit for that like pipeline value. And then they have 3 impressions. And then there's 8 impressions. So you can choose between these. And then there's also engagement impression, which would obviously include, engagement, not impression, but just engagement. So it would include like clicks and shares and comments. So whatever the standard definition of an engagement is as a metric on LinkedIn. So you can kind of choose between all of these. Like I would obviously go for 8 impressions minimum, or ideally for an engagement when I kind of analyze the performance, because I don't really think, one impression would really change the world. But yeah, that's essentially how they build the attribution as of now. It used to be clicks, actually. They had it initially when it came out for a couple of weeks, and then they rolled it back.
Okay. So is that something you feed into a bigger report?
No, that's more for so the revenue attribution report is more for understanding like general trends. So I would look at the revenue attribution report for the last year on monthly basis, and then I kind of like understand the efficiency of our LinkedIn as a channel. Are we getting less efficient? Are we getting more efficient? Are we getting like more for our money? And then sometimes I would get insights on the campaign level, because that was recently launched as well. Let's say we're launching a new campaign, and in the UI, I don't really see it performing well, but then I would just kind of sense check it with revenue attribution report, and then it would report like amazing ROAS. And I was like, okay, maybe let's leave this campaign for another few weeks, because we could get, the conversion API being attributed, like conversion level data being attributed to it in the UI a little bit later, because revenue attribution report is showing great performance. So I wouldn't really make a lot of decisions based on it, but it's useful in a sense of you quickly understand what's your ACV, what's your win rate, also the general trend as I explained just now. For that purpose, it's quite good.
So it's obviously kind of a little bit more advanced in terms that it gives you more insights in terms of concrete decisions, right? So in terms of if you were to say to someone starting with 10K spend a month, what would you say are kind of for you the 2 or 3 key sources of truth to simplify things?
Yeah, so definitely conversion API. So if you care about MQLs, if you care about SQLs, if you care about pipeline, any metrics that you care about cost someone becoming a lead, so not just, whatever you can track on the website as of now with Insight Stack, demo booking submitted, or whatever, free trial started. So I'm talking about post lead generation stage. So starting with conversion API, because it will definitely tell you how good of a quality the lead is. And then they have different attribution windows as well. You can choose 7 days click, 1 day view, You can choose 7 days click, 7 days view. You can choose 30 days click, 1 day view with these type of like variations. I would go for like 30 days click, 1 day view. I think it's fairly fair in terms of the attribution window. So just starting with this, and then obviously the self-reported attribution is a must. Like you want to see like on a timeline, whenever you started LinkedIn or whenever you increased your budget or whenever you decreased your budget, how is your like responses, like we saw you on LinkedIn, changes over time. So that would be, and it's fairly easy to set up as well, both conversion API and the self-reported attribution too.
Yeah, and a good tip as well, just to basically, if you really want to test it, turn it off.
Yeah.
You know, there's no better measurement of what it's actually doing. If you turn it off for a little while. So LinkedIn obviously is it's come a long way, right? You know, there's, especially in the last couple of months and the last couple of years, there's been a lot of positive introductions to the tool that have made it easier for people to attribute. However, I still feel there's a little bit of a way to go in terms of measurement. Is there anything you see from other platforms that you would like to have on LinkedIn?
Oh, that's a good question. So like just measurement related or like not measurement related?
Go
or
for
attribution?
Whatever. We're speaking attribution, but if you have anything else, go for it.
Yeah, maybe like on the attribution specifically. I really hate like how long it takes for the data to match. So from the time you send a conversion data to LinkedIn, by the time it's reflected in the UI, it's like 3 days, but sometimes it's 5 days, which is an insane period of time. So like for comparison, Meta would do it in 30 minutes, like a couple of hours. Like next day, you basically have all of the conversions being attributed, which is not, like the end of the world, but it kind of like annoys me because still like on Monday when we do our weekly performance reviews, we are always saying like, oh yeah, LinkedIn is going to like attribute a little bit more by like Wednesday. So you'll see the numbers a bit better. But I'm like, come on guys, you are like, you're a huge player in this space. Just like fix your matching, like make it like much faster and like much easier from this perspective. So yeah, that's definitely like on the attribution side that I would try to fix, and also like maybe different models as well, like first touch, last touch. Because right now, I mean, like okay, they have the first campaign, last campaign, but something like in between, like a little bit more insights on like what's going on in the middle, or like the messy middle, how Google calls it. So yeah, that's on the attribution side. I guess like what comes to mind, and obviously the revenue attribution report could be improved. Like ideally, you would want to filter on the campaign group level and see the trend on the campaign group level, so have a little bit more filtering. Because right now they don't even have like download button. So like all like what I do sometimes, like for most people it wouldn't make sense because most people don't use revenue attribution report. But the campaign level data is just a table that you cannot download. So I would kind of copy everything, paste it in GPT, and ask GPT to give me like a spreadsheet format. And then it's just like, come on, like, add the download button.
100%. But there's so many things in LinkedIn now that if they were exportable, or if you could manipulate the data in a better way, it would be so much more useful. So I nearly say it on every podcast, but product team, if you're listening, you know what to do. Okay, cool. So LinkedIn itself, before we move on, I always like to kind of give something actionable to anyone listening, especially people who are starting off on LinkedIn ads, because they are usually the people who are researching and trying to get better. Is there anything on LinkedIn ads right now that you would say, ad format, feature, anything like that is a no-brainer?
I mean, the manual bidding that we talked about, that's, I think for majority of cases, that's a no-brainer. Start on the lower side, see how you go. If you're not spending the budget, raise the bar a little bit, but don't start with max delivery. Like obviously there are cases, but don't start with max delivery. And then on the ad formats, like historically, single image ads was kind of the go-to format, but now I really see this changing. Video is becoming more important. also thought leadership ads is, they gaining momentum and kind of make sense to me. And like all of these, document ads, I've seen recently, that the conversation ads have been upgraded now. So they're getting better as well. So definitely like experimenting with different ad formats is a must if you're starting, because it's easy to get set in whatever you've been doing before, but not trying these type of things. It's, you have to figure it out. You have to figure out how format works, what the best practices are, invest time in testing it, invest time in improving it, and so on. But definitely to do it, because like as we talked about, like creative is not just the visual side or the copy, but it's also the format it's displayed in, which is quite important. So definitely experiment with ad formats. And I would say like last thing is what I really find like about LinkedIn is the devil is always in the detail. Like just whatever you set up, make sure you click on that icon button and just like read exactly what it means. Even like simple things like you set up the location targeting, whether that's a permanent location,
or
temporary
recent,
location, or both, or recent. Yeah. Like just read what that means, or like what is like enhanced bidding, because it could kind of increase your bid 2 times. So these type of things, like the devil is always in the details. So just read it out, like make sure you understand exactly what you set up and check every single thing. Because like by default, you will be like on max delivery, you would be on like recent location and all these type of things. So just be like extra vigilant and like pay super close attention to whatever you're setting up.
For sure. And I think one other thing to add to that, to go nearly a step further, is sometimes things actually aren't what they say they are, or there's other types of things that will work better. For example, I'm one of my clients, I'm running a brand awareness campaign where the ultimate objective is reach. It's an unusual one for me, but that's the objective. It's just pure reach. The reach optimization with brand awareness, I had to run a test, obviously, because I just don't trust it. The reach objective, the brand awareness objective, where you can optimize for reach, performs 2 times worse than video views. Video, by the way. So I did it on both video views and on brand awareness, and I got 2x more reach using video views. So just something to think about there.
Yeah.
For the same price, by the way. So play around with it. Definitely the devil is in the detail. Definitely play around with things if you think there might be a better way to do it.
No, for sure. We had a similar situation as well with campaign objectives, like a couple of months ago.
And then they change, right? So that's another thing to be aware of. They can change depending on how much people are using them. Different dynamics. If they've changed something in the back end that we don't know about, they can change. So it's just to keep an eye on things. Cool. Okay. So moving away from LinkedIn ads, back into your role as paid media, so head of paid media. If there was something, a product, a service, whatever, that you would absolutely pay for as head of paid media, what would that be?
I'm a really big fan and supporter of paying for knowledge and education and learning. What I mean is, one of the like only kind of shortcuts that I know of like really getting good at paid media is talking to someone who's done it and who's done it really, really well. And I'm really comfortable paying money for that. Jumping on a call, like an hour call, paying for that is really a no-brainer. Because if somebody can give you like ideas or direction or like recommendations that would really improve your performance by 20%, by 30% on whatever budget you have, most likely it's going to be justifiable. And people hate paying for knowledge and for information. Like we kind of like, became like so, like knowledge is so easily accessible. You can Google it, you can go on LinkedIn, you can follow a few people, you can learn, but it's not really the same what you get if you find somebody who's like truly, truly great and like truly, truly passionate about what they do, and you speak to them and you are passionate as well. You're coming back from that meeting full of ideas, full of things to test. And then you try, you test, and then you stumble on something that really transforms your performance or improves your performance by 20, 30%. So that's one thing that I'm like really, really comfortable paying for. And I actually do, like, honestly, I do quite a lot of cold outreach myself. Like if I see somebody who's like really great, that I think they're really great on LinkedIn, I would message them, like cold message, like, hey, I saw you like, I saw your post. I think, like we could, would be really great if we talk and kind of exchange value. Cause I have a lot of ideas that I can share back and lots of, experiments and things behind my belt. But that's a no-brainer for me. Like if somebody's listening to this who's like really, really great at whatever they do, like Google, Meta, reach out to me. I'm getting you Amazon voucher or whatever. It's an easy one, but paying for education, paying for knowledge, it's the only shortcut there is out there.
And it's a really interesting one because a lot of people don't actually know sometimes themselves how knowledgeable they are at something. Some of the clients I've worked with from the LinkedIn ads perspective have taught me a lot about other pieces, of the puzzle, whether it's different attribution models, whether it's different ways of thinking about creative or strategy or things like that. And they don't actually know themselves how good they are at it, so they're like, oh, I could speak to someone to get a little bit of knowledge, and they don't feel that there's any exchange that they will be given as well. So I'm just putting it out there that there's a lot of people who have a lot to give as well, so having those conversations as a marketer, and especially in paid media is huge. But also put your hand up and reach out to people, because sometimes there's a lot more you can give as well that you just don't realize.
Yeah, that's a good call out.
So the future of B2B, future of LinkedIn. If you were to wave a magic wand at the LinkedIn product team, we've already called them out on one thing, on the conversion, the time it takes. By the way, just a little bit on that, the Facebook conversion API has been around. I painfully know how long it's been around, because I had a client at LinkedIn who basically the only thing they were missing was the conversion API.
They rubbed it in your face.
Yeah, they were like, Facebook does it so well. And I think it was like 2017 or something. They were talking about how good Facebook conversion API was. So LinkedIn is just catching up. So we're hoping that's going to get there soon. But aside from that, if you were to wave a magic wand, what would you ask LinkedIn product for?
Yeah, I think probably like LinkedIn product knows us a little bit by now, because we do share lots of feedback through our team. But like I have a lot of things, but like if I would have to put them in broader categories, it's like number one is like better automation. If you kind of like take yourself outside of LinkedIn world for a second and think of like, where else do you use manual bidding? Like, do you use it on Meta? Do you use it on Google? Do you like change bids daily and like upload like via bulk uploads or whatever? Like, do you really like handle your bids and spend like 20% of your working week on doing bidding? I don't know. That's not the case, but like on LinkedIn, we still do manual bidding as the go-to practice. And I really believe that, LinkedIn automation like should get better. Like we should be in a position where if you know your ICP, you set up your targeting, you should be getting like 20, 30, 40% more for your money, because LinkedIn should be able to tell who is in market, like what kind of companies the members are checking out, what they're interested in, what is the dwell time on a particular content. Like it's fairly straightforward to figure out if they're in market or not, or what type of skills or what type of things that they would benefit from, or like what type of software. And you just use that automation element to get better performance. But right now that, the max delivery, maybe it's doing some of it, but it just goes for like really crazy prices that it diminishes the return of that automation and essentially kind of nullifies it and makes it like worse from a performance perspective. Yeah. And then like on the automation piece and like on the bidding piece, like something around like value-based bidding, not all customers or like not all potential customers created equal. You need to be able to differentiate between them, assign them different value, and tell the LinkedIn algorithm, okay, you go more for these customers because they're more valuable for me as a business. Right now, we kind of don't have it, right? So like this whole automation piece, so that's a kind of one bucket. And then the second bucket is insights and maybe even AI generated insights. So a good example is Google Insights tab, where they kind of share lots of stuff, like sometimes very interesting stuff. Like you go into the Insights tab, you're like, okay, last week people were more interested in these type of searches, so this is like what's skyrocketing. Or this week people are resonating with this, and it kind of pinpoints you like, okay, check this, check that. Versus like with LinkedIn, nothing, right? I would love the LinkedIn like to tell me, okay, like these type of job titles, I'm more interested in these type of ads, or even like like AI generated insights for creatives. Like these type of creatives resonate more, longer creatives work better, shorter creative work worse, like these type of things. So AI generated insights across the whole account would be pretty awesome.
Or even organic. This is like this is your target audience, and we found out that 30% of them have engaged with this organic post or this type of organic post. Stuff like that would be. It's really, really simple for them to create.
Yeah. And then like small stuff, improving conversion, like improving the API functionality, reporting functionality, speeding up the whole UI, like making it faster, easier to manage things, creating like ads at scale, like these type of things. But
so you're living in that world where you're in the product sphere, feeding back. You're starting to get to know the product managers. They're interviewing you. You're in that world now, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think we'll join a few roundtables this year probably, and speak to a few people to share these type of things. And yeah, we try to give feedback, right? Because like if you're not happy about something, what are you doing to change that?
Yeah.
If you're just like not doing anything and just being unhappy, that's a very miserable person to be around. So we don't want to be that. We obviously, like as soon as like ideas come out, we share them. And I think our LinkedIn team is quite appreciative of that as well. So they share it further. And it probably lands in some years, and maybe like, sometimes shifts the priorities and pushes the production of a particular feature forward. I don't know, maybe, hopefully.
It does. I can attest to that. When I was at LinkedIn, the voice was always heard. It just moved way slower years ago. We used to celebrate the little wins, this actually got implemented or that got implemented. Where by the time I was leaving, which is a few years ago now, it had sped up quite a lot, and I can only see that getting faster. So feeding back to them is only a positive thing. And hopefully they listen to these podcasts, because everyone
you have to send it. You have to send it. I'm sure you have a few contacts. So
I do. I should be sending it. That's true. Or at least taking the snippets out and be like, here, just so you know.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And the last one, outside of LinkedIn, in B2B, in paid media, just in general, where do you think there's a big opportunity?
I think there is a big opportunity for marketers to get better in general. And what I mean is, like, I see like quite a lot of people, as soon as like GPT came out, or like these like tools that are appearing right and left, people are just like, oh my God, like with this tool, I created this, like it's like so much more efficient, so much more like better than before. But I feel like a lot of people not really spending enough time on the basics. Like do you really know your product that you're advertising in and out? Like are you really like knowing your customers? Do you really know if you say this, or like if you communicate this in your creative, it will resonate and the message will land? Because I see that a lot of marketers are struggling with this, like understanding the not like jumping right away in the platform, or like, oh my God, this is the best channel for us to use. This is the best ad format. This is the best strategy. This is the best implementation, but more stepping back and thinking about the products, thinking about the messaging, thinking about the creative as well. Like not a lot of people spend time on the creative, but I think they should be testing creatives constantly. That's probably another podcast right there. So definitely spending time on messaging, on product, on creative. And also like I really see that quite a lot of marketers, they claim to be really data driven, but in fact they missing like like basic elements of like measurement and understanding like how to work with data. Like so many people actually haven't still learned GA4 and are really struggling with like exploration reports, different attribution modeling in GA4, understanding like how to build reports in HubSpot or whatever CRM you're using. So like really being comfortable with like, aggregating data, analyze data, and be proactive in it. Like, okay, this is the idea that I have. How do I validate it with the data that I have? So, missing this like data-driven / measurement skill sets is definitely an opportunity for people to, to improve on. And then obviously nobody like AI, if I haven't said it enough, but you do have to keep an eye on, what's going on in industry from from AI perspective, you have to be comfortable using GPT. It has to enhance some elements of your work, obviously without sacrificing the basics that you understand, your product, your messaging and these type of things. But yeah, don't miss out on the tools, and like follow great people on LinkedIn. Make sure you upskill yourself, read what's happening, and think how you can, simplify your workflow, improve your workflows, and so on.
You need to post more, Borys.
Rob, honestly, no time.
Yeah, I know.
It's so, if I were to post anything, I would just probably be, I don't know, maybe one day, one day.
No,
I have lots of ideas actually. I have this like a notepad where I have like LinkedIn post ideas, and it's getting to like 30, I think. So maybe one day I'll just go all out. We'll see.
Or do even a campaign or a series. This is what I'm starting to think about doing now, because I'm running out of time as well for these things. But it's basically do a 30 days posting, or like 8 weeks of this is what I'm going to talk about, and then don't post again, because this whole posting all the time thing it takes so much time to get it right.
Yeah. But like making one great post, I'm pretty sure hours. I'm pretty sure like hours. Yeah.
If you want to make it really valuable and really insightful and do it right. Yeah. Other people to follow, like the basics. So for me, the one thing I've learned, the more I've learned is the more I learn, the less I know. I know it's a cliche, but it's so true. I started off on LinkedIn ads and went like you with Google, went to learn every feature, went so much into the technical that I thought I was a genius on it, until I realized I was missing strategy and everything else. And the more I've learned over the years, the more I've gone back to the basics, and a couple of good people to follow for the basics are Mark Ritson, obviously, and Lee Maroney. Actually, recently I've been reading a lot of his stuff. He's really, really good at switching you back to focusing on the things that actually matter. So love that answer. Bonus question, just a quick fire one. Any company starts a LinkedIn account, LinkedIn will hound them and give them $100 free or $200 depending of ad credit. What would you do with it?
I'd keep it if I can, and not start anything with $100. That's like what, 10 clicks right there. Depending on your audience. If you're lucky, Rob, I don't know what I would do with $100. I honestly probably would keep it as a souvenir and make a good post about it.
Love that. On that note, Borys, pleasure talking to you as always. So looking forward to hopefully you posting a little bit more on LinkedIn, but best of luck with everything that comes for Synthesia. It's a really exciting company. You're doing a lot of really exciting stuff with it, and looking forward to see what comes next.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation as well.
Thanks, Borys. Bye, everyone.